Isoke, whose name means gift in the Yoruba language, was an imaginative and joyful 8-year-old girl. She lived in a peaceful village surrounded by lush greenery and thick mystical woods. These ancient trees were said to be home to powerful spirits from long ago, and many villagers whispered stories about strange happenings in the forest. Despite these mysterious tales, Isoke felt safe and happy, protected by her loving family. Her father, Kwame, was a strong but gentle man who worked hard to provide for them. He adored Isoke and often encouraged her creativity. Her mother, Noluthando, was kind and wise, known for her healing knowledge and her soft laughter that warmed the hearts of those around her. Noluthando often took Isoke along to gather herbs near the edge of the woods, teaching her the names and uses of different plants. Isoke had a special gift for storytelling. Her wild imagination would bring to life the trees, the animals, and the unseen spirits of the forest. When she spoke, the villagers would gather, enchanted by the vivid worlds she created. She painted pictures with her words, stories filled with adventure, courage, and wonder. "You're truly a gift to our village," the elders would say, smiling as they listened to her tales. Life was simple and full of joy for little Isoke. She laughed often, danced freely, and dreamed endlessly. But as the villagers knew too well, peace in their land was fragile. The same woods that brought beauty and mystery to their lives also carried whispers of danger. And Isoke, though unaware, stood at the edge of a storm that would change everything. One stormy evening, thick, dark clouds covered the sky, and the wind howled through the trees. The air smelled of rain, and distant thunder rumbled like a warning. Most villagers hurried to their homes to escape the storm, but Noluthando, Isoke's gentle mother, was not among them. "We need more healing herbs," she told Kwame earlier that day. "The storm is coming soon," he warned, worry in his voice. But Noluthando smiled softly. "I won't go far," she promised. "I'll be back before the rain falls." Isoke watched her mother walk toward the edge of the thick forest, her colorful shawl fluttering in the wind. She didn't know this would be the last time she saw her mother. The rain came suddenly, drenching the village in heavy sheets of water. Kwame and Isoke waited by the door, peering into the darkness, hoping to see Noluthando returning with her bundle of herbs. But as the hours passed, worry turned into fear. "She should be back by now," Kwame muttered, his brow furrowed with concern. He grabbed a lantern and rushed out into the storm, calling Noluthando's name. The villagers joined the search, combing through the muddy paths and calling into the night. "Noluthando!" they shouted, their voices swallowed by the roaring wind. They searched until dawn, but Noluthando was nowhere to be found. Whispers spread through the village like wildfire. "She must have gone too deep into the forest," some said. "Maybe the ancient spirits took her," others murmured fearfully. Stories of curses lurking in the forest shadows resurfaced. The woods, once a place of beauty, now seemed filled with dark secrets and unseen dangers. Isoke's heart ached with sorrow. She couldn't believe her mother was gone. Every day she sat by the door, hoping Noluthando would walk back in, smiling as she always did. But she never came. Kwame, broken by grief, withdrew into silence. He spoke little and often sat alone, staring blankly into the distance. The once lively home was now filled with sadness and emptiness. Isoke missed her mother's warmth, her laughter, and her gentle touch. But more than that, she wanted answers. What had really happened that night in the storm? And why did the forest feel different now, as if it held a terrible secret no one dared to speak of? A year had passed since Noluthando's disappearance, but the sadness in Isoke's home remained heavy. Her father, Kwame, still carried a quiet sorrow in his eyes. He was no longer the cheerful man Isoke remembered. Each day he seemed lonelier, as though the weight of his grief was too much to bear. Then one morning, everything changed. News spread through the village like wildfire. Kwame was getting married again. The villagers were surprised but hopeful. "Maybe this will bring joy back to his life," they said. Isoke, however, wasn't sure how to feel. The thought of someone taking her mother's place felt strange and wrong. The woman's name was Zalika. She arrived in the village dressed in flowing, shimmering clothes that sparkled like moonlight. Her beauty was undeniable, her skin smooth as river stones, her eyes dark and mysterious. When she smiled, even the elders were charmed. "What a fine woman Kwame has found," they whispered. At first, Zalika seemed perfect. She spoke sweetly to everyone and brought gifts to the village children. The villagers admired her grace and charm. "She's a blessing," they declared. But Isoke noticed something different, something unsettling. Zalika's smile never quite reached her eyes, and when she thought no one was looking, her face grew cold, like stone. Even stranger was Zalika's interest in the forbidden parts of the forest. The villagers had long avoided those dark woods, especially after Noluthando's disappearance. But Zalika often stood near the trees, gazing into the shadows as if listening to something only she could hear. Once, Isoke caught her whispering strange words under her breath near the forest edge. The hairs on Isoke's arms stood on end. Despite Zalika's charm, Isoke couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Her presence brought a chill to their once warm home. Isoke missed her mother more than ever, and now she feared that this new woman carried secrets that could change everything. What connection did Zalika have to the forest? And why did it feel like the woods were watching them both? Zalika may have fooled the villagers, but Isoke knew deep down this beautiful woman was hiding something dark, and Isoke was determined to find out what it was. Isoke loved telling stories. It was her way of keeping her mother's memory alive. Whenever the villagers gathered by the fire, Isoke would speak of Noluthando, the mother who disappeared into the forest, but remained a shining presence in her daughter's heart. She imagined brave adventures and magical forests where her mother was still watching over them, waiting to return. The villagers listened with wonder, their eyes wide at Isoke's vivid tales, but Zalika did not like these stories. One evening, after hearing Isoke speak, Zalika's expression turned icy. Her beautiful face twisted with anger as she pulled Isoke aside, away from the listening crowd. "Enough!" Zalika hissed, her voice low but sharp like a blade. "You must never speak like that again." Isoke's heart raced. "Why?" she asked, confused. Zalika's eyes gleamed darkly. "Your words summon spirits," she warned. "You don't understand the dangers you invite. If you keep talking, terrible things will happen to this village. And to you." Isoke trembled, but tried to be brave. "That's not true. They're just stories," she said softly. But Zalika's grip on her arm tightened. "You will be silent," she commanded, her voice filled with a strange, cold power. "Or you'll wish you had listened." After that night, something strange began happening whenever Isoke tried to speak. The first time, it was during a simple conversation with her friend by the river. As soon as she opened her mouth, an eerie wind swept through the trees, shaking the leaves violently, though the day had been calm. Shadows flickered on the ground, twisting and shifting like living things. Her friend ran away in fear, and Isoke stood frozen, her heart pounding. The same thing happened again when she tried to tell her father a story. The walls of their home creaked and groaned as though the house itself were warning her to stop. Kwame, still lost in grief, barely noticed. But Isoke knew something unnatural was happening. Fear gripped Isoke, but confusion lingered too. Was Zalika right? Were her words really dangerous? Or was this just another trick? The strange winds and flickering shadows seemed tied to Zalika's warning, but deep in her heart, Isoke felt a stubborn spark of courage. Even if her voice summoned spirits, she wasn't sure silence was the answer, and whatever Zalika was hiding, Isoke knew that staying quiet forever would only let darkness grow stronger. Ever since Zalika forbade Isoke from speaking, strange things started happening. The air around their home felt heavy, as if filled with secrets waiting to escape. At night, Isoke would hear whispers drifting through her window, soft, eerie voices calling her name from the direction of the dark forest. She tried to tell herself it was just the wind, but deep down, she knew it wasn't. One evening, as she lay in bed, unable to sleep, a pair of glowing eyes appeared just beyond the edge of the trees near their home. They hovered in the darkness, watching her. Isoke's breath caught in her throat. She blinked, hoping the eyes would vanish, but they stayed fixed on her before disappearing into the shadows without a sound. Things inside the house were no less strange. One afternoon, as Isoke swept the floor, she noticed faint symbols glowing on the walls, barely visible in the sunlight. The marks looked ancient, like something from a forgotten language. At night, under the pale light of the moon, they glowed brighter, casting eerie patterns across the room. Isoke traced them with her fingers, feeling a strange energy pulsing beneath her touch. Curiosity burned inside her, but every time she tried to ask questions, Zalika's cold stare silenced her. "Mind your own business," Zalika snapped, when Isoke asked about the strange symbols. "Some things are not for you to know." Zalika grew more controlling each day. She watched Isoke closely, as if afraid the girl might uncover a hidden truth. "Stay out of my room," she warned one evening. and don't go near the forest. Her voice was sharp, leaving no room for argument. Isoke's father, Kwame, was still trapped in his own sadness and seemed unaware of the strange changes in their home. He barely spoke, and when he did, his words were hollow and distant. Isoke felt completely alone. But despite Zalika's warnings, Isoke's curiosity only grew stronger. The glowing eyes, the mysterious whispers, and the strange symbols on the walls, everything felt connected. Her heart told her that answers lay somewhere in the forbidden shadows Zalika desperately wanted to hide. And Isoke knew one thing for certain. She could not stop searching for the truth, no matter how dangerous it might be. One night, as Isoke lay in bed, she noticed something strange. The glowing symbols on her bedroom walls were brighter than ever before, casting strange shapes across the room. The moonlight filtered through the window, illuminating the symbols, making them shimmer like stars. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but then she saw something impossible. As she stared, the symbols began to shift and change, moving like they were alive. Isoke's heart raced as she recognized something familiar in the patterns, a language she had seen in her mother's old books. It was the same writing Noluthando had used when teaching her about the ancient forest spirits. The symbols seemed to pulse with a rhythm, almost as if they were calling to her. Isoke's fingers itched to trace them, to understand their meaning. When she leaned closer, she could almost feel her mother's presence, like a whisper in the air. As she touched one of the glowing marks, the symbols rearranged themselves into words. They were clear now, and they made Isoke's heart beat faster. Speak and unlock the truth. Isoke's breath caught in her throat. Could this really be a message from her mother? Was she trying to tell her something from beyond the forest? The words felt so real, so urgent. The message was simple, but it held a weight that Isoke couldn't ignore. For days, she kept the message to herself, unsure of what to do. She wanted to speak, to share the truth, but the fear of Zalika's curse held her back. What if speaking triggered the dark forces she had been warned about? Still, the thought of her mother's spirit, trapped and trying to communicate, pushed Isoke to the brink. The glowing symbols weren't just a sign. They were a plea for help. Her mother was trying to reach her, urging her to find the courage to speak and uncover the truth that lay hidden in the shadows. Isoke knew, deep down, that it was time to listen to the message, no matter how dangerous it might be. The secrets of the forest were waiting, and it was her voice that could set everything free. Isoke couldn't shake the feeling that Zalika was hiding something dark. The more she watched her stepmother, the more she felt there was a secret locked away, something that connected Zalika to the forbidden parts of the forest. Her curiosity grew stronger with each passing day, until one night, she couldn't ignore it any longer. With the house dark and everyone asleep, Isoke crept quietly to Zalika's room. Her heart raced, but she was determined to find answers. Zalika had always been protective of her space, never letting Isoke inside. Tonight, however, Isoke was certain she would discover something important. The room was filled with shadows, and the soft glow of the moon made everything seem still and mysterious. As she moved across the room, her eyes fell on a spot near the corner. Something was out of place. Beneath the floorboards, just slightly lifted, was an old, dusty wooden box. It was small, but the wood had a strange symbol carved into it, one that Isoke recognized from the glowing marks in her room. Her fingers trembled as she slowly pulled the box from its hiding place. The wood felt cold and ancient, as if it had been waiting for her. She tried to open it, but it was locked tight, the key nowhere to be found. A sense of urgency gripped her. She had to know what was inside. Just as she was about to leave, a sharp voice cut through the silence. "What do you think you're doing, Isoke?" Isoke spun around. Zalika stood in the doorway, her eyes dark and filled with an icy anger. She had caught her. The room seemed to freeze, the air heavy with tension. Zalika stepped forward, her voice low and threatening. "Some secrets must stay buried," she warned, her tone sending a chill down Isoke's spine. "You don't know what you're playing with." Isoke stood frozen, heart pounding. But her eyes never left the box. There was something inside it, something powerful, and Zalika knew it. The warning in Zalika's voice was clear, but Isoke could feel her mother's spirit calling her to keep going, to find the truth. With a sharp breath, Isoke stood tall. She wasn't scared anymore. The box was more than just a hidden secret. It was the key to everything. And no matter how terrifying Zalika's words were, Isoke knew she had to find a way to open it. The truth was waiting. Isoke felt more alone than ever, her mind racing with questions and fear. She knew Zalika was hiding something powerful and dangerous, but she didn't know where to turn for help. That's when she met Mama Jabari, the wise old woman who lived on the edge of the village. Mama Jabari was known for her deep knowledge of the forest and its ancient spirits. People said she could see things that no one else could, and her wisdom was respected by all. One afternoon, after hearing Isoke's restless thoughts, the village elder called for her to visit. Isoke was both nervous and curious, unsure of what to expect. When she arrived at Mama Jabari's small hut, the elder welcomed her with a kind smile. The air inside was thick with the scent of herbs and smoke, and the walls were covered with ancient symbols. It felt like the entire place was alive with secrets. "Come, child," Mama Jabari said, her voice soft yet strong. "I know why you've come." Isoke stepped closer, her heart beating faster. "You know about Zalika, don't you?" The elder nodded slowly, her eyes sharp with understanding. "Zalika is not who she appears to be. She is connected to the dark magic of the forest, the very forces that stole your mother." Isoke's eyes widened in shock. "You mean my mother's disappearance? It was because of the forest?" Mama Jabari's gaze grew distant, as though she could see something far beyond Isoke. "Yes, child, the forest holds great power, but it is not meant for the faint of heart. Zalika sought to control that power, trapping spirits to feed her own darkness. Your mother was one of those spirits, bound by a curse she couldn't escape." Isoke's mind raced. "But how can I help her? How can I stop Zalika?" Mama Jabari looked directly into Isoke's eyes, her voice filled with mystery. "Your voice, child, is the key. It has the power to break the curse and release the spirits trapped by Zalika. You must speak the truth aloud, no matter the danger. Your words will unlock the forest's magic and set everything free." Isoke's heart pounded in her chest. She had been silenced for so long, afraid of the curse that came with speaking. But now she understood. Her voice was not just a gift. It was a weapon against the darkness. With newfound courage, Isoke nodded. She knew what she had to do. The time had come to break the silence, confront Zalika, and uncover the truth that would set her mother and the village free. The village was buzzing with excitement as preparations began for the Festival of Ancestors, a sacred time to honor the spirits and protect the village from evil forces. Brightly colored fabrics hung between trees, drums echoed through the air, and the smell of delicious food filled every corner of the village. People whispered eagerly about the stories that would be shared by the fire, tales of courage, love, and ancient wisdom. Isoke watched from a distance, her heart aching. The festival had always been her favorite time of year. She loved sitting among the villagers, listening to elders tell stories that connected them to their ancestors. But this year, something was different. Zalika's cold voice shattered her hopes. "You are not going," she commanded firmly, standing tall with that sharp, dangerous look in her eyes. Isoke's mouth opened in protest, but Zalika raised a hand to silence her. "You think I don't know what you plan to do?" Zalika's voice was low and threatening. "Your voice is dangerous, girl. If you speak at the festival, you'll ruin everything." Isoke clenched her fists. "Why are you so afraid of my voice?" she asked, her voice trembling with defiance. Zalika leaned in closer, her words chilling. "Because your voice can summon things better left buried. Stay away, or there will be consequences." As Zalika walked away, Isoke stood frozen, anger and confusion swirling inside her. Why was Zalika so determined to keep her silent? What truths was she so desperate to hide? The drums of the festival echoed louder as the evening approached. Lanterns were lit, and the entire village gathered by the fire. Isoke knew she had a choice to make. She could obey Zalika and remain silent, or she could defy her stepmother, speak the truth, and face whatever danger awaited. The pull of the ancestors was strong, calling Isoke to stand up for herself, her mother, and her village. As she looked toward the glowing fire in the distance, a spark of courage ignited within her. The time had come to break the chains of silence, no matter what Zalika might do. The night of the Festival of Ancestors had finally arrived. The sky was painted with stars, and the village was alive with the sounds of laughter, drums, and crackling fire. People danced under the flickering lantern lights, their faces filled with joy and wonder. But Isoki was not among them. She sat alone in her dark room, forbidden by Zalika to attend. Yet Isoki's heart wouldn't stay silent. The voices of her ancestors seemed to whisper in the wind, calling her to the fire, urging her to stand up for herself and the truth. Her stepmother's warning echoed in her mind, but something stronger pushed her forward. Courage. With quiet determination, Isoki slipped out of her room and crept through the shadows of the village. Every step was a risk. If Zalika caught her, the punishment would be severe. But Isoki didn't care. She had to be there. She had to speak. As she approached the festival, the warm glow of the fire lit up the gathering crowd. Villagers sat in a wide circle, listening eagerly as the elder, Mama Jabari, raised her hands for silence. Tonight, Mama Jabari announced, her voice strong and clear, we honor our ancestors with tales of courage and truth. Who will speak first? A heavy silence fell over the crowd. No one moved. The fire crackled loudly in the quiet night. Isoki's heart pounded in her chest. She felt fear gripping her throat, but deep inside, she knew this was her moment. Trembling but determined, Isoki stepped forward. Gasps rippled through the crowd as they saw her small figure standing near the fire. Whispers spread quickly. Isoki! What is she doing here? Mama Jabari's wise eyes met Isoki's. There was no judgment, only understanding. Come, child, she said gently. Do you have a story to share? Isoki swallowed hard, her hands shaking. She could feel Zalika's warning like a shadow over her, but she took a deep breath. Yes, she said, her voice wavering but growing stronger. I have a story about courage, and about the truth that must no longer be hidden. The wind seemed to stir around them, as though the spirits themselves were waiting to listen. The villagers leaned forward, their faces filled with curiosity and anticipation. Despite the fear pounding in her chest, Isoki stood tall. She had made her dangerous decision. Now it was time to speak, no matter what happened next. The fire crackled as Isoki stood in front of the villagers, their eyes wide with shock and curiosity. The drums had fallen silent, and the night air was thick with tension. Isoki's hands trembled, but she took a deep breath, gathering every ounce of courage inside her. She had been silent for too long. Now it was time to speak the truth. My mother, Noluthando, disappeared into the forest a year ago, Isoki began, her voice wavering but growing stronger with each word. Everyone said it was the forest's curse, but it wasn't just the forest. There's more, much more. Whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. The villagers leaned closer, eager to hear what Isoki had to say. Her heart raced, but she pushed through the fear. Strange things started happening after she disappeared, Isoki continued. Symbols appeared on my walls under the moonlight. Whispers from the forest called my name. I saw glowing eyes in the dark. Gasps echoed around the circle. Some villagers clutched their charms for protection. Mama Jabari nodded quietly, urging Isoki to go on. And then there's Zalika, Isoki said, her voice sharpening. A fierce wind swept through the gathering, making the flames flicker wildly. She forbade me from speaking. She said my voice could summon spirits, but now I know why. Because she was hiding the truth. Zalika, standing at the edge of the circle, stiffened. Her charming smile faded, replaced by a cold, angry glare. Enough, Isoki, she hissed, her voice trembling with panic. You don't know what you're talking about. But Isoki didn't stop. Her voice grew louder, stronger, fueled by the weight of her mother's memory and the secrets she had uncovered. Zalika is connected to the dark magic of the forest. She trapped my mother's spirit. She's the reason my mother never came back. The wind howled fiercely, swirling leaves and ash into the air. Shadows danced wildly around Zalika, as if summoned by Isoki's words. The villagers shrank back in fear, but Isoki stood firm. Zalika's eyes gleamed with fury as the shadows wrapped around her. You foolish girl, she snarled, her voice barely audible over the raging wind. You've unleashed forces you can't control. But Isoki knew better now. Her voice was the key, and she was no longer afraid to use it. The truth will set us free, she declared, her voice echoing across the village. The fire roared higher, and the shadows twisted violently around Zalika. The villagers watched in awe and terror as Isoke's words shook the very night itself. The truth had been spoken, and there was no turning back. The wind howled like a wild beast, swirling ash and sparks around the frightened villagers. Zalika stood at the edge of the circle, her beautiful face twisted with anger and fear. The shadows that had once obeyed her commands now flickered chaotically, slipping beyond her control. Isoke's voice had shattered the silence, and with it, the lies Zalika had carefully hidden. "You don't understand!" Zalika shouted, her voice cracking. "I did what I had to do!" The villagers gasped, their eyes wide with disbelief. Mama Jabari stepped forward, her steady gaze never leaving Zalika. "Speak the truth now, or the spirits will take their own justice," the elder warned. Zalika's lips trembled, her defiant mask crumbling under the weight of Isoke's words and the swirling shadows. "Yes," she finally confessed, her voice bitter and cold. "I trapped Noluthando's spirit. I had no choice." A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Isoke's heart raced as tears stung her eyes. "Why?" she demanded, stepping closer, her voice trembling with both sorrow and rage. "Why did you do that to my mother?" Zalika's eyes flickered with a mix of guilt and desperation. "The forest spirits gave me power," she admitted. "But they demanded something in return, a soul to bind. Your mother was strong, too strong to resist their call. I needed her spirit to keep my magic alive." The villagers murmured in shock, their trust in Zalika shattered. Many clutched protective charms, fearing the dark forces that had been unleashed. "You stole my mother from me," Isoke said, her voice thick with grief. "You trapped her spirit just to satisfy your own greed." Zalika's shoulders slumped as the shadows tightened around her, no longer her allies, but her judges. "I thought I could control it," she whispered, "but the forest's magic is wild and dangerous. Now it's too late." The flames in the fire pit roared higher as the truth hung heavy in the air. The villagers, once charmed by Zalika's beauty and lies, now saw her for what she truly was, a woman consumed by dark magic and selfish ambition. Isoke stood tall, her courage shining through her sorrow. She had broken the silence and revealed the dark truth. Now there was only one thing left to do: free her mother's spirit once and for all. The wind roared louder, circling around the gathering like an unseen force. Shadows twisted wildly, but Isoke didn't back down. Her voice rang clear and strong over the chaos. "Mother," she called, tears glistening in her eyes. "If you can hear me, come back to us. You are free now." As those words left her lips, a sudden tremor shook the ground beneath their feet. The wooden box hidden beneath the floorboards in Zalika's house, where her dark secrets had been kept, burst open with a loud, crackling sound. A blinding light shot into the sky, golden and warm, illuminating the entire village. The villagers gasped in awe, shielding their eyes from the dazzling glow. The wind that had been fierce and cold softened into a gentle breeze, carrying with it a soothing presence. From the heart of the glowing light, a graceful, radiant figure emerged, Noluthando. Her form shimmered like morning sunlight, peaceful and beautiful. "Mother," Isoke whispered, barely able to believe her eyes. Noluthando's spirit moved toward her daughter, a gentle smile on her face. "My brave, strong Isoke," she said softly, her voice filled with love. "You freed me." Tears streamed down Isoke's face as she rushed forward, embracing her mother. Though Noluthando's form was made of light, the warmth of her love was undeniable. The villagers watched in stunned silence, many wiping their eyes at the miracle unfolding before them. "You have broken the curse," Noluthando said gently. "Your courage has saved me and the village." The golden light began to spread across the village, washing away the fear and darkness Zalika had brought. Flowers bloomed, the air grew sweeter, and a deep peace settled over everyone present. As Noluthando's spirit slowly began to fade, she looked into Isoke's eyes. "Keep telling your stories, my child," she whispered. "Your voice is a gift. Never let anyone take it from you." With one last loving glance, Noluthando's spirit rose into the sky, disappearing into the stars. The villagers stood in awe, forever changed by what they had witnessed. Isoke wiped her tears, a new strength filling her heart. Her mother was free, and the village was safe. Her voice had brought the truth to light, and it would continue to carry love, courage, and hope for generations to come. The golden light faded, leaving the village in peaceful silence. The warmth and glow of Noluthando's spirit lingered in the air, as though her love had blessed the land forever. The villagers turned to Zalika, their faces hard with anger and betrayal. The woman they had once admired for her beauty and charm was now exposed as a wielder of dark magic, a deceiver who had stolen Noluthando's spirit and brought shadows into their lives. "You are no longer welcome here," Mama Jabari declared firmly, her voice echoing with authority. "Leave this village and never return." Zalika's face, once proud and defiant, now showed fear and shame. Her power was gone, broken by Isoke's courage and the return of Noluthando's spirit. "I only wanted to protect myself," Zalika muttered weakly, trying to defend her terrible deeds. But no one listened. The villagers stood united, their trust in her forever shattered. Two strong men from the village stepped forward, guiding Zalika toward the path that led deep into the forest. She looked back one last time, her eyes filled with bitterness, but no one met her gaze. The village had made its decision. Zalika disappeared into the shadows, never to be seen again. Kwame, who had stood quietly through it all, now stepped forward with tears streaming down his face. He knelt before Isoke, guilt heavy in his heart. "My daughter," he said softly, his voice breaking, "I failed you. I let my sorrow blind me, and I allowed darkness into our home. But I swear to you now, I will never silence your voice again. I will protect you, always." Isoke's heart ached at the sight of her father's pain, but she knew this was a new beginning for them both. "We'll be okay, Papa," she said gently, taking his hand. "Mama's spirit is free now, and so are we." The villagers gathered around them, offering words of comfort and praise. "Isoke," Mama Jabari said proudly, "you are the bravest storyteller this village has ever known." Isoke smiled through her tears. Her voice, once silenced, had become a powerful force for truth and healing, and from that day forward, she knew that neither fear nor darkness would ever hold her back again. The village, once shadowed by fear and silence, had now been transformed. Peace and warmth filled the air, and the laughter of children echoed through the streets. At the heart of it all was Isoke, now the village's most cherished storyteller. Each day, as the sun began to set, villagers would gather around the great fire in the village square, eager to hear the young girl's tales. Isoke had a gift, a powerful voice that could bring people together, inspire courage, and speak truth that had been hidden for so long. Her stories were filled with magic, adventure, and the wisdom of the past. She spoke of the forest, of the spirits who lived there, and of the brave men and women who had fought to protect their land. But most of all, she told stories of love, love that never dies, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. As Isoke spoke, the villagers could almost feel Noluthando's spirit beside her, guiding her words. It was as if her mother's love lived on in every story, in every word that left Isoke's lips. The villagers listened in awe, moved by the beauty and power of her tales. Some said they could even hear the soft whisper of Noluthando's voice in the wind, urging them to live with truth and kindness. Isoke's stories didn't just entertain, they healed. They reminded the villagers of the strength that comes from speaking out, of the power of courage and honesty. Her voice, once silenced by fear, had become a symbol of hope and resilience. Kwame, now proud and filled with love for his daughter, watched her with a heart full of gratitude. He had promised to protect her, and he kept that promise. He made sure that nothing would ever stop her from speaking again. The village had changed. The dark days were behind them. And in their place was a new beginning, a future filled with stories that would inspire generations to come. Isoke knew that she would never stop sharing the truth, honoring her mother's memory, and keeping the spirit of the village alive in every word she spoke. Peace had returned to their hearts, and the village would forever be a place where truth and love could always shine.